So it's finally happened. After buying so many watches and buying watches that are probably feeling like that they should be too big for me, but then haven't been too big for me, I've finally gone and done it. I have bought a watch that is too big for me, which is a real shame because I really like this watch, but it has meant that I haven't really ended up wearing this one. Hello, you're watching James. My name is James, you're watching me, and I am talking about watches. And this Electricianz watch is something that I wanted to own for a long time, but one thing that stopped me buying it was the size. I'd sort of known the dimensions before buying this one, which is kind of why I didn't want to buy this one, which certainly isn't why I didn't want to buy this one brand new, which is why I ended up buying this one secondhand. And even when I knew that it was coming, I thought, ooh, I'm a bit worried about it being too big. But I've done that with other watches before, and then I've ended up loving them and wearing them, but not this one. Unfortunately, this one has ended up being too big for me, like just beyond my wrist size. And it's a real shame because when I look at this watch, I'm just captivated by it. I just think it is well made and fun and interesting, but it's just too big for my wrist. And it is such a disappointment because I want to own this watch. I want this one to stay in my collection longer term, and I want to wear it. Electricianz, if you from the company are watching this video, and you're probably not, but if you are, can you please put out another variation of these watches, but shrink them down considerably. It doesn't have to be a tiny watch. I don't want it to be a tiny watch. It's got a lot going on, so it has to be a relatively big watch, but not as big as it is, because I just can't wear it. And a lot of people that are going to be watching this video are going to be in the exact same situation. And I'm going to say to them right now, if your wrist is below about 20 centimeters, then it's going to be too big for you. And not many of us actually have those bigger wrists. There's certainly some of them out there, and if you have one of those bigger wrists, this is the watch for you, and I think it may be really good to have in your collection. But for the rest of us with small or even medium wrists, because my 17 centimeter wrist is considered medium, and this one's way too big for me. So yes, Electricianz, if you're watching, please make a smaller variation. I sort of get, however, why it is a bigger watch, because when you look at the dial of this watch, there is a lot to look at. There's a lot going on, there's a lot of details. And those details are not only done really well, but they're really interesting. And it really sort of works as a watch as a whole. This is a watch that I've been really enjoying looking at, just unfortunately I haven't been wearing it. Now I've just spent all that time talking about dimensions of this watch and saying that it is too big, so let's actually give you the dimensions of this watch, because the case itself, not including those buttons or those crowns, is 47 millimeters. And yes, I knew that when I was going into the purchase of this one, 47. But I thought, well, perhaps it will just be a little bit smaller with the lug to lug, and even though it's bigger, it might sort of sit okay, but unfortunately the lug to lug is 54. Now, I have got watches that are closer to that lug to lug as well, but aren't 47 millimeters in case. So it just, unfortunately, the mixture of these two make it a little bit too big. The thickness, 13.8 millimeters, is actually okay for this watch. Lug width is 22, so they haven't gone overboard there either. And the weight of this watch on that bracelet that it comes with is 149 grams. So it's a nice weight of watch. It is a few proportions of it that are okay, but unfortunately just not for my wrist, as you can see now. And something that I just have to sort of point out, and I'm sure you've seen it already as well, that the bracelet that comes with it, the bracelet that is actually really well made and actually a nice bracelet, doesn't have fitted end links, and it just makes it look a little bit strange. I know that this can work on some watches, but I just don't think it works on this watch. So again, Electricianz, could you please maybe update that bracelet too? Make it a bit smaller and then update that bracelet. But let's put all that aside, because even though it is huge, even though I haven't been able to wear it, it's worth checking it out and it's worth seeing it in more detail, especially close up with some macro footage, because there's so much to see here and it is awesome. Honestly, this is awesome. The blue segmented iridescent section there, it has an almost skeletonized section to it, so you can sort of see through the hands. You can see the polished second hand there. You can see the brushed hour and minute hand. You can sort of see partly through it to what looks like the coil there. And it's a really nice iridescent blue, which really jumps off this particular watch dial. But then you look further across to the left, which what looks like the battery that's there. But forget the battery, just look above it and you'll see those two little screws, or they look like screws. They are like terminals, because there is a positive and a negative on there. And I think just that one little feature there, having the little positive and negative, really tells you something about this watch and really indicates the detail of what is going on here. because just look further at this watch. Look at how it's been put together. Look at not just the symmetry of the watch with how it's been sort of placed on the dial, or how things have been placed on the dial, but look at the details and the quality and the finishing. It actually surprises me the watch is finished as well as it is. I was a little bit concerned that this one might be a little bit of a novelty, and I have to tell you, this is not a novelty watch. This is a really well thought out, really interesting, really fun, really detailed, really well made watch. But again, just a little bit too big. So sort that out, please, because I actually really want to own this one in my collection. But that is all then covered by a flat piece of sapphire crystal. And then you turn it onto its side and you actually look at the case. And there's more going on in the case than was initially obvious as well. And again, it comes down to details, comes down to the finishing, comes down to how the case is put together, that sort of angle there, and that sort of brush sort of look, the polished sort of look, and that sandblasted sort of effect to it. There's a nice sort of case back as well with some information about the watch. And again, that bracelet. I really like the bracelet. I'm probably not completely in love with the butterfly clasp just because of the weight of the watch itself, but it is a really nice bracelet. Just doesn't have those fitted end links. So that is a little bit of a miss for me, unfortunately. But then let's get to that dial, because there's one thing I haven't shown you yet. Something that is one of the reasons why I ended up buying this watch in the first place, and that is when you hit that button and activate that light. That looks awesome. I just like it. It's fun. It's well positioned. It actually makes it legible to then read the watch as well, but it's just fun. This is something that I wish other watch manufacturers would sort of look at, things like this, because details like this really make the watch. So this one has been a bit of a miss for me, unfortunately. It's a watch that I haven't worn, and it's very rare that I buy a watch and not actually wear it very often, which tells you that this is not just a big watch, it is way too big for me, because I don't mind wearing bigger watches. And it's so unfortunate. I've sort of walked away from this watch now doing this review, thinking, what a shame, because what a cool watch, but I just haven't been able to wear it. So this one's going to be sold, unfortunately, but hopefully somebody who buys this one has a bigger wrist and actually gets to enjoy the details of this one and the fun factor of it. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. I do always really appreciate you taking the time to check out my videos, even when it's a watch that I haven't worn very much. But now, how about you watch one of these two videos?